Claire Whitmore was the kind of woman you noticed without realizing why. Not for her voice, it was soft. Not for her fashion, it was modest. But for the way she seemed to exist on the edges of every room. Polite, beautiful, and deeply absent. At 25, Claire had been married to Nathan Whitmore for 5 years. He was a third-generation contractor, the kind of man who built houses with his hands and avoided emotions like exposed wires. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't abusive. He just wasn't there. Their days ran like clockwork. Nathan left the house before sunrise and returned just before dinner, his hands covered in dust and paint. They ate in silence. He talked about roofing materials and engine parts. Claire nodded, smiled, refilled his sweet tea. She had dreams once. She wanted to teach literature, travel to Greece, write a novel about Southern women who felt too much. But dreams don't pay bills, and Nathan never understood why she needed more when he already provided everything. So Claire stopped dreaming. She cooked, cleaned, volunteered at church, and slowly she started to disappear. Not physically, but emotionally. Her loneliness wasn't dramatic. It was subtle. It wore pastel cardigans. It said, "I'm fine," through a forced smile, and no one ever asked twice. Until the gala. October 2019, a charity event to raise funds for historical preservation. Claire's friend convinced her to go. Nathan was too tired. She went alone. And that night she locked eyes with a man who saw her not as a wife or a waitress or a shadow, but as a woman. Judge Raymond Delacroix was an institution in Charleston. For over 40 years, he sat on the bench with a gavel in one hand and the town's respect in the other. He was sharp, elegant, always in a pressed suit, even in retirement. He had dined with governors, eulogized senators. People didn't just respect Ray Delacroix, they feared him. But retirement left a void. The courtroom was gone. The power, diluted. His wife, Judith, barely spoke anymore. He missed being relevant. He missed being wanted. So when Claire Whitmore entered the gala that night, timid, radiant, out of place, Ray noticed, and something stirred inside him. They spoke by the hors d'oeuvres table. She apologized for being underdressed. He told her she lit the room better than any chandelier. She laughed. It had been months since anyone made her feel interesting. He asked what she did. She said she used to want to teach. He said, "There's still time." It was innocent, at first. Ray invited her to volunteer at the Charleston Heritage Foundation, where he served as honorary chairman. She accepted. It was something to do. Their meetings became weekly, then bi-weekly. He'd take her to lunch, introduce her to art dealers, teach her about the city's history. He made her feel smart, heard, important, and he knew exactly what he was doing. For Claire, it was a light in a long gray tunnel. But for Ray, it was a game, a revival, a pursuit of youth, disguised as mentorship. By December, their conversations lingered. By January, his hand brushed her and didn't pull away. The judge who once ruled over felons now ruled over her time, and Claire, starved for affection, didn't know she was already in too deep. January 2020, the first kiss happened in Ray's private office, behind antique bookshelves and mahogany doors. Claire didn't stop it. She didn't want to. For the first time in years, someone looked at her like she was wanted, not tolerated, not background noise. She convinced herself it was harmless. No one would know. It would fade. But it didn't. Instead, it bloomed. Secret lunches became weekend getaways. Ray rented a loft 2 counties away. There, Claire wore red, drank wine, said things out loud she'd never dared to say before. He called her his salvation. She called him Ray, but with every kiss came a leash. Ray became possessive. He monitored her schedule, questioned her friends, grew jealous when Nathan so much as smiled at her. He started saying things like, "You don't belong in that house anymore. I gave up everything for you. When will you do the same?" Claire tried to slow things down, but Ray didn't take rejection well. He'd threaten her. "You think Nathan won't find out? You think your church friends won't see those photos I have?" The man who once whispered poetry now sent text messages filled with rage. Claire was trapped, not by force, but by fear, and worse, by guilt. She knew it was wrong. She knew it was dangerous, but she had no idea how much darker it would become. By February 2020, the affair between Claire and Ray had gone from thrilling to suffocating. What once felt like freedom now wrapped around her throat like a velvet noose. Ray's affection twisted into obsession. He began showing up outside her home unannounced. He left gifts in her mailbox. Sometimes notes on her windshield that read, "You belong with me. You know it." At first, Claire tried to pull away gently. She stopped responding to messages. She skipped volunteer events. She told him she needed space. But Ray didn't take no for an answer. When the soft words stopped working, the threats began. "If you don't leave him, I will, and I'll take everything with me. I've got messages, photos. You think your husband won't burn your life to the ground?" Claire's world began to close in. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every knock on the door made her flinch. Every phone vibration made her chest tighten. She told no one, not even her sister, not her church friends, not Nathan. Because how do you tell someone that you're being blackmailed by a man you willingly kissed? Ray had power. He knew the police, the judges, the press. And Claire? She was just the housewife, the invisible girl in pastel sweaters. Until now. By March, she wasn't just afraid of being caught. She was afraid of being destroyed. The final meeting happened on March 17, 2020. A Tuesday, a quiet afternoon, a storm gathering on the horizon, both outside and inside Claire. Ray had demanded they meet. He texted, "Come to the loft. We need to talk. No more games." Claire didn't want to go, but she also didn't want him showing up at her front porch again. So she did what many victims do. She complied, hoping that compliance would keep her safe. She walked in, already tense. Ray was pacing, sweating, a whiskey glass half full in his hand. His voice was calm at first, but when Claire said, "I can't do this anymore," everything snapped. He slammed the glass down, accused her of betrayal, of using him, of making him look like a fool. He cornered her, grabbed her wrist. She cried, told him to stop, but Ray wasn't listening. He was unraveling. When he reached for her phone, trying to delete messages, Claire panicked. Her eyes locked onto the fireplace poker. It was instinct, fear. She grabbed it, swung. Once, twice. Blood, breath, silence. Ray collapsed. Claire froze. She stared at his body, heart pounding, tears flooding her eyes, her mind screaming, "What have I done?" The man she once thought could save her now lay dead at her feet, and no matter how it happened, it would never look like self-defense. Claire ran. She left the poker. She left the loft. She left Ray bleeding on that Persian rug and drove home in total silence. She deleted messages, washed her hands 3 times, burned the dress she wore in the fire pit. The next morning, news broke. Retired Judge Raymond Delacroix found dead in private residence. The police initially suspected a break-in. No forced entry, no signs of robbery, but something felt wrong. It didn't take long before investigators found text messages, emails, surveillance footage showing Claire entering the building that day. And Ray's phone? It hadn't been locked. Inside, hundreds of texts between him and Claire, photos, voice recordings, threats from him, pleading messages from her. By March 24th, detectives knocked on Claire's door. She answered in silence. Didn't ask why they came. She already knew. At the station, she broke down, not with denial, but with exhaustion. She told them everything. The affair, the pressure, the threats, the fear, the final swing. And then she asked one question. "Do you think anyone will believe me?" The detective didn't answer, because in cases like this, truth is never clean. And justice? Well, sometimes it's just another word for who tells the story first. When the news of Judge Raymond Delacroix's death broke, Charleston was stunned. This wasn't just another local tragedy. This was the Raymond Delacroix, man of the law, pillar of justice, friend of the governor. To many, he was untouchable. To others, he was dangerous in ways no one dared admit. Until now. As police sifted through the crime scene, something didn't sit right. There were no signs of forced entry, No valuables missing, but the living room told a different story. Glass shattered, blood spatter angled across the fireplace, the poker still slick with dried red. It looked personal. Detectives turned to digital records, and there it was. A storm of text messages between Ray and Claire Whitmore. Some affectionate, some volatile, some downright disturbing. In one, Ray had written, "If I can't have you, Claire, no one will. I'll ruin you." In another, Claire begged him to stop coming to her house, threatened to block him, feared what he might do. By March 26th, Claire's name was the lead whisper in every corridor of the department. Detectives interviewed Nathan. He was shocked, angry, confused. He hadn't known a thing. "I thought she was just bored," he admitted. "I didn't think she was scared." Security footage showed Claire entering the loft on the day of the murder. Her fingerprints were on the doorknob. Blood droplets matched her shoes. The evidence was damning, except for one thing: intent. Was it murder, or was it panic? As the media caught wind of the affair, public opinion fractured. Some called her a manipulator, a homewrecker. Others called her a survivor. One headline read, "Southern Belle or Silent Killer." But beneath the headlines was a woman unraveling, and the city she once walked through unnoticed now looked at her like a ghost. Claire's trial began in August 2020. COVID restrictions meant fewer people in the room, but the world was still watching, glued to screens, addicted to drama. Prosecutors painted her as an opportunist. They said she seduced an aging judge for money, gifts, influence, that when he threatened to cut her off or expose her, she killed him in cold blood. They replayed audio clips of her calling him Ray, giggling, showed receipts for wine, for lingerie. They called her calculated, dangerous. But Claire's defense? It hit harder. Her lawyer, Eliza Stone, told the jury a different story, of a woman trapped in a relationship built on coercion and power imbalance, of a young wife, emotionally starved, pulled into a web by a man 45 years her senior, who knew exactly how to manipulate silence. They presented evidence of Ray's obsession, unwanted visits, aggressive texts, a private investigator report confirming Ray had followed her twice. The prosecution pushed back, calling it regret turned to rage. But then came the bombshell, a voice recording Claire had made just weeks before the murder. She'd been documenting his behavior under advice from a friend. In it, Ray said, "I've taken down tougher people than you. You think I won't take you down too?" The courtroom went quiet. Even the judge shifted in his seat. When Claire took the stand, her voice cracked. She wasn't rehearsed, she wasn't polished. She was just human, broken, tired, terrified. "I didn't go there to hurt him," she said. "I just wanted it to stop." The jury deliberated for 3 days, and when they returned, not guilty of murder, guilty of involuntary manslaughter, Claire would serve 7 years, not as a murderer, but as a woman who struck back and couldn't undo the blow. Claire Whitmore entered prison on September 2nd, 2020. She was 26 years old. The world outside moved on. The headlines faded. The city returned to brunches and board meetings. But for Claire, time didn't pass. It pressed. Inside, she kept to herself. She declined interviews. She stopped writing letters home. Nathan filed for divorce. Her church removed her from the bulletin, and her sister, once her best friend, stopped returning calls. For the first year, Claire cried every night. But by the second, she started writing, not for publication, not for redemption, just to make sense of what had happened. She didn't call herself a victim, didn't call herself a killer either. She called herself something else, a woman who loved the wrong man and forgot how to say no before it was too late. 7 years, that's what the court gave her. But the sentence she lives with, it's in every mirror, every headline that still exists online, every whisper from those who never knew the full story. Claire will walk free someday, but she'll never really be free. Because in the end, some prisons don't have bars. They have memories. And this one, she'll carry for life. Years will pass. Claire Whitmore will eventually walk out of that cold steel gate, a little older, a little grayer, marked by time not on her skin, but in her soul. She may get a second chance, a job, a small apartment, maybe even peace. But the world will never forget who she once was, and she'll never forget what it cost her to say yes when she should have said no, to stay silent when fear whispered louder than reason. Raymond Delacroix, judge, mentor, predator, lies buried beneath a marble headstone, his legacy split in two: the public hero and the private terror. His family mourns a man they thought they knew, and Claire lives with the truth no obituary dared print. This wasn't a story of a scandalous affair gone wrong. It was a story of imbalance, of how one person's power, when mixed with desire, can suffocate another's freedom. We often think abuse looks like bruises, but sometimes it looks like compliments. Sometimes it wears a tailored suit, and sometimes it calls itself love. Claire didn't fall for a man. She fell into a pattern, one that starts with being seen, then slowly becomes being owned. The warning signs, they weren't loud. They were quiet: possessive texts, unwanted visits, the guilt she felt every time she tried to leave. This story reminds us that not all cages have bars. Some are built from promises, from threats, from the fear of being exposed in a world that's quicker to shame than to understand. So if you're watching this and something feels too familiar, if someone in your life makes you feel small, unsafe, controlled, you are not weak for wanting to be loved, but you are worthy of love that doesn't demand silence in return. And if you're standing at a crossroads like Claire once did, ask yourself this: if I don't leave now, what will I become if I stay? Because the scariest tragedies aren't the ones we watch from afar. They're the ones we live through quietly, until it's too late to scream.